Live from the heart of Baylor Bear Country, the most comprehensive pre-game coverage. This is Game Day Live, powered by Sikkim 365 and KWTX News 10.
And good morning. And how about this? It's the day after Thanksgiving. Texas and Baylor close out their conference schedule, although Texas might have yet one more game left if, in fact, they win and Kansas can beat Kansas State on Saturday. We're now, again, Game Day Live, KWTX local television, CBS affiliate, and this is 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross is here. I'm in the studio with him. And again, this is our Game Day Live, Texas and Baylor. But before we get into any of that, this is the most important part about the day after Thanksgiving. This, to me, is what Thanksgiving is all about. This is everything. The day after, turkey sandwiches on whatever bread you want to use, some mayo, and then a little pepper. And there it is, the turkey sandwich. Well, don't use the other one yet, Garrett. I'll eat 5 of those today.
You know,
5 of them.
Last year I didn't have turkey until Christmas. So for the second year in a row, I've not had turkey on Thanksgiving. Although I was at the Gaylord Texan yesterday eating, and they had many things available. I skipped turkey and forgot about it.
You know, you're not even, I don't even know who you are anymore.
Look, they had prime rib. So
I'm doing that tonight.
So, you know, I like turkey. I think I've heard a lot of slander of turkey around the country lately.
Yep.
And it's from most places that are not Texas that don't know how to, or the South that don't know how to deep fry or smoke a turkey like you're supposed to, not just cook in the oven. Turkey here is good. But there was prime rib right next to it. And I was like, I'll take cow.
Yeah, I know how you do. And I'm going to do that, not tonight, but tomorrow. I took it out earlier today, and it is in the refrigerator, the slow thaw. Now, here's also yesterday the best part, to me, the turkey, the best part's the day after because of a turkey sandwich. We're going to go to Darby Brown in Austin in a minute. Here's the best part to me of Thanksgiving Day.
Pumpkin pie?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith's pumpkin pie. Put it in the oven for an hour 15, let it cool down. Then you put it in the refrigerator, get a little bit of that. See how nice and tight that is?
Is that ice cream or
no, that's a big old, that's Cool Whip.
Cool Whip, okay.
That's Cool Whip. That's what it is. All right, Baylor and Texas. Baylor trying to finish with some sort of feel-good, and they almost got the ultimate feel-good last week, but could not close out against TCU. Texas, again, can win today if they do, and they still have a shot to play TCU for the Big 12 title based on Kansas and Kansas State. Straight to Austin. It's been raining all, it seems like, week. And we're joined by Darby Brown of KWTX at DK Royal Memorial Stadium. And Darby, let's get a weather check. First of all, is it damp, wet, raining, what?
It's not raining. It's definitely dark and gloomy, but finally not raining. So I have my rain boots on, and so far I don't even need them. But, you know, hopefully it stays like this because I'm with you. It's been raining way too much, although I do think by this afternoon things might change a little bit.
I've been told by my mom, who is watching this morning, that the rain is supposed to come after 2 o'clock. And she got that, Darby, from KWTX weather. So I know that it's kind of a second long way around to tell you that you might have some time from a place you already know how to get that information.
Yeah, well, because of that, I tried to bring my umbrella in the stadium, and they had an issue with that. But I am expecting that when I'm trying to do the post-game stuff, we're going to be dealing with some rain.
All right, Darby, we know the emotions of this Baylor team have been, I don't know how to explain it because I don't know if Dave Aranda can explain it. We don't know sometimes from week to week. My question to you is that obviously the concern after Kansas State was how did they get up after being humiliated? They did. And then, of course, couldn't finish. How did they get up after such a gut-wrenching loss? It is a short week. And do you think the one less day of thinking about it might help them?
Yeah, I think they just got to get right back out there and play today. I mean, I think that they're probably eager for the opportunity to play again and to have a chance to finish the season on a good note. But no doubt probably lingered a couple of days. I think Coach Miranda talked about that a little bit, that it was when they had, I think, the meetings on maybe Sunday or Monday, there was still even some emotion at that point, but they've put that behind them and they're moving forward and they're tapping into motivation in other ways, just, by trying to prove that they are, the team that we almost saw last week up until the end. They're trying to be that team out here today. So I think it could help. I think there's a lot of things that were different about this week. It's a short week. There's the holiday. There's a lot of other things that can kind of maybe just make you just, hey, we're going to play a game. As simple as that, and try to get everything else out of your mind.
Darby, it is not easy to lose both the ways they did, getting absolutely run over by Kansas State and then losing to your biggest rival by a point at the end in a game that you really had in control for the majority of it. Before the X's and O's, is not the psyche is really the most important thing for Baylor to be a 7-5 team and not a 6-6 team?
Yeah, I think they want to win. I think they want to win. I think you always want to beat Texas, so there's that as well. And then the seniors, there's a lot of seniors that thought they were going to have almost a magical senior day, and then they fell short. And now they have an opportunity to stand back up here last time in Texas and play. So, yeah, I think that it matters, to them to win this game. And so I think that it's all about that. They just got to play and put themselves back together after a loss like that.
Darby, one more thing on what could have happened. It didn't. It's over. And again, it's sometimes hard for people to clear. We don't have to as those who cover a team, but obviously the team has to get focused eventually on the next opponent because the calendar doesn't stop. But your thoughts about a win against Texas anytime because of who they are as far as the tradition, no matter what they've done to struggle the last 10 or 12 years, does this then put a little bit more of not a smiley face on this season? How much would a win help just after the season they've had at Baylor?
I think it would help. I think it would also really help if they play like how they played last week up until the end there. But I think this team has been up and down, and honestly, Texas has had a similar deal. There's maybe a couple plays that could have changed their season as well. Same with Baylor. So I think if they can win, if they can beat Texas, and if they can prove, what type of team that they've been striving to be, if Blake Shapen can prove what kind of quarterback he's been working to be, and things like that, I think it would mean a lot to this group.
Darby Brown. Thank you, Darby. We'll be with you again in about an hour or so. Darby Brown, always she, along with Chris Williams throughout the year. It's been great. It has absolutely been fantastic to have the live presence, at the stadium, wherever it is, McLean and or now DK Royal Memorial Stadium with Ricky Williams and Earl Campbell, their names on that field. All right, we have a lot to get to today. We're going to hear from J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback, and also he's a part of Baylor Radio. Same thing with Ricky Thompson. He breaks it down in two different opinions, two different eyes, two different sets, but two former players. And we'll also hear from Jeff Howe today, from Texas Horns 247 and the Horn in Austin about what does all this mean. I got a question for you, Paul. And we'll do a historical look at Baylor, Texas in the next segment. Tell me a game this year where Baylor upset somebody.
I don't know what the spread of the Oklahoma game was, but I don't really feel like that was an upset.
I don't care what Vegas.
Like you were talking about,
tell
we're
me
not
a
talking
game
about Vegas
that they
lines.
won where they weren't supposed to win.
Oh no, that hasn't happened.
It hasn't. I was on with the Big 12 Radio Network earlier today with Ari and Gabe and also with Dave Archer. And Baylor last year was 4-1 in one-score games. They're 2-3 this year. And, again, 3-2, then you're at least 7-4 going into today. It feels a little bit different. But it's hard to. I don't know who it was, Ralph Russo or Pete Mundo or who it was, that said you just can't expect when you go 4-1 in one-score games, you just can't expect to do that consistently over the years. Again, last year the one-score loss was a game against at TCU. This year there's a handful of them, and even the wins. The Oklahoma game was a one-score. They blew out Texas Tech. Iowa State scored late, right, to make that closer than it really was. But the 3-point loss at West Virginia, the 1-point loss to TCU. They got not blown out. They lost by, I think, 11 to Oklahoma State. The double overtime loss to Brigham Young. Yeah. It's just hard to expect that.
I would say that the only two games where they overperformed most people's expectations were Tech and Oklahoma based on matchups. But what we know about those teams is Tech, Oklahoma, and Baylor they're the Spider-Man meme, right? They're just pointing at each other of they're kind of the same in that you are really exciting and fun sometimes, and other times you are underwhelming to a high degree. And that has been the season for all three of them you can split hairs on how some of them lost, the Red River shootout game was like the worst in Oklahoma's history. Tech getting rolled over by Baylor was terrible. Baylor getting rolled over by Kansas. Like, they all have these games where they can you think you were sad that day? Well, here, I can top that. So that's been the season for, those teams in the Big 12, and actually could wind up being that for Texas today too, because they're right now riding on, they're in the escalator 2 steps above everybody else, but could get their shoelace caught and fall down. They're having a better season than those 3 teams, right?
Right.
Technically today, but Baylor, again, they're the ones who could catch the shoelace and make them feel completely on the same level as those teams we just talked about.
Yeah, and again, there's a chance that a 3-loss team in the Big 12 could play for the championship if, in fact, Texas wins and K-State was to lose to Kansas in the Little Apple in Manhattan. All right, a lot to get to today. J.J. Joe on what he has seen. Also some thoughts about the quarterback play. We'll also have some historical perspective on Texas, who's dominated the rivalry, but the last decade or so has been different. That plus your feedback. The chat room is on. Scotty B opened up with us today. Thank you, Scotty B. And the text line, if you have any questions or a topic you want us to discuss, we can do that. And we will look at today's schedule, not just in the top 25, but also the weekend of the Big 12. Last night, Mississippi State and Mike Leach beat a distracted Ole Miss team. And that's not why they won, 24-22 in the Egg Bowl, and all the questions surrounding Lane Kiffin and his future. This is 365 Sports, KWTX, and Game Day Live, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Game Day Live on News 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Chronic pain robs people of the joy of life.
The pain in my back was horrible. I was told I would have a lifetime of pain and probably need more surgery.
When Mrs. Morris first came to Advanced Pain Care, she told us she wanted her life back. We have cutting-edge treatment for chronic pain.
They recommended a spinal cord stimulator, and it has been absolutely life-changing. I'm so much happier. I would absolutely say Advanced Pain Care got my life back.
Call Advanced Pain Care today. There is hope. Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
Hi, I'm Vic Fazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Fazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Fazell.
Also, again, throughout the day, there's some games on the day after Thanksgiving. I mentioned that Mississippi State beat Mississippi last night, 24-22. In the Big 12 this week, you think about what's going on. This game here, which has implications for Texas, and really Baylor, just to kind of get above 500 by 2 games and not worry about a losing season if they lose today and then maybe in the bowl game. But this week, everything except this game is on Saturday. West Virginia at Oklahoma State. Of course, the Cowboys are 7-4, and they're not going to be able to make the Big 12 championship game. Iowa State at TCU. TCU is a heavy favorite, but Iowa State usually keeps that game kind of, you know what? They kind of ugly it up a little bit. That's their style. Texas Tech at home against Oklahoma. OU's a slight favorite there, and Kansas in that game, a almost two-touchdown favorite at home against KU. Any of those 4 games, if Baylor wins today, it's an upset. Any of those 4 games, which is most likely going to be the upset based on Vegas? Texas Tech at home against Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think so. Or Kansas beating Kansas State would be.
Well, no, that'd be. I'm saying you think who do you think is most likely to happen?
I think most likely probably Tech over Oklahoma.
Okay.
I think they are. Like I said before, they're really similar. So, and Tech is at home in Lubbock. So
and the crazy things, crazy crowd, great crowd in a good way. 8 teams in the Big 12 have made the postseason as far as making it to at least a bowl game, and TCU, of course, trying to get more than that, and whoever they play next Saturday in Arlington. Ricky Thompson, Baylor Radio sideline reporter, former Baylor wide receiver. His thoughts about Baylor trying to get back up off the canvas. Ricky Thompson, former Baylor and Washington NFL wide receiver, does sideline work for Baylor Radio, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak.
You think they got another flush in them, and does it help that it's on the road?
You know what? This team seems to have gotten over the road problem. I mean, once they got BYU past them in West Virginia, they really played some really tough, good road games. Starting at Iowa State, I don't care what their record is. That place is tough to play. They hadn't lost a conference game there, and since, 19? So, or 20, that was really impressive to win there. Winning at OU at any time is tough. They just stuck it on Oklahoma State last week at home. You won some really tough road games. Texas Tech, sellout. Patrick Mahomes being inducted and just wiped them out up there. So I don't think the road scares them. I particularly don't think playing in Austin scares them. And I'm going to be surprised if we really don't show up and play well and play really hard and hopefully play smart.
Ricky, this is the last game until a bowl game, but what would be more difficult to get up for or get back up off the canvas? Getting embarrassed at home by Kansas State or a game that just took out your guts?
Man, that's a good question. I've been in both. I've been in games where we've been just blown out and looked terrible, and I've been in ones that were heartbreakers. And sometimes, honestly, Smokey, I think it's the heartbreaker that's harder to overcome, because there was no doubt about K-State once you got into third quarter. That was a tail whipping, and it wasn't going to change. And this game was absolutely not over. In fact, the clock hit 0 with the ball in the air last weekend. So that's how close and tough a loss that was. And I don't know if you guys saw it on the field. There were some devastated players out there that just laid down on the ground like a 12-year-old and pitched a fit, which I'm not saying is bad. I'm saying that's a good thing. They were upset, distraught, thought they should have won the game, which they should have. And sometimes that is really hard to get past. I do think it's good. It's a short week. I think that's a plus.
Ricky, Texas is an 8.5-point favorite for this game right now, which, look, Vegas knows these things better than we all do. It's what they do. But I don't really see that much of a difference between these two teams almost in any regard to make me think that this should be an 8.5-point game.
Well, first of all, it's remarkable the spreads that they put on these games. I mean, look at the game last week. What was it, 2.5?
Yeah.
And it ends up 1. My gosh, that's right on the money. And that's a tough pick after the way we stunk it up against K-State to come in and bring us at a only 2.5 underdog to a 10-0 team. And they knew something because it was right there. I don't know. That seems high to me. Texas has been off and on. I didn't see them last week against Kansas, but apparently they just really ran it down their throat. They had, 450 or 60 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. And I think Bijan Robinson is the key to that offensive football team. You have to stop him. I think we can do that. It seems so far we really haven't had a running back that has really killed us. Deuce Vaughn played well against us, but I thought most of his damage was out of the backfield on the swing route and the little curl route out of the backfield was where he killed us. So I think they're capable, and just like I said last week, I won't be surprised if we go down there and beat those guys.
Yeah, Bijan, he had a crazy day, like 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's coming in hot for this Baylor team, but they've played pretty well against him up to this point. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't know if you've already seen some of this, Ricky, but I guess, doing a podcast, there's already people, because it's 6-5 now at this point and only one more regular season game, already starting to kind of look ahead towards next year. And I'm not asking you that with this question, but how good do you think moving forward and how excited do you think people should get with modest expectations over one freshman, Kelsey Johnson, who had his first career rushing and receiving touchdown the other day against TCU? He seems like he's going to be a really fun guy to watch develop over these next few years.
Well, I think he is. And his best play, I thought, was the touchdown reception. I thought I happened to be just concentrating on that side of the field for no reason in particular. And the route he ran on that play was pretty clutch and not an easy catch that he made. And at that point, what a huge touchdown that was. And then the reverse he ran, or I guess it really wasn't even a reverse, but what the fly sweep, whatever, from the tight end, I was thinking, it reminded me a little bit of Neil Jeffrey in 1974. I was thinking, hurry,
right.
Get to the corner. But, I mean, he snuck it in, and at that point, that was a huge touchdown. So, I mean, this kid, freshman, and what confidence he plays with. And, of course, he has really been forced into action with an injury. But Drake Dabney, of course, went down, who I thought, by the way, guys, was playing really, really well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's hard to measure how much he's missed. He's such an agile, nimble guy, really catches the ball well, runs downfield with it. You'll remember the hurdle he had at Iowa State. But the positive side of that is Kelsey's gotten in the game because of the injury, and he's performed. So I think you're in good shape going forward at the tight end position.
I think that touchdown on the fly sweep, whatever it's called, was called lumbering. He was lumbering, and my God, he finally got there. But Ricky, you mentioned Duggan and what he had been through. Is that a lesson for those who right now are hard and really almost in cases more than frustrated on the interception before the half from Blake, or maybe missing Ben Sims? Is that what you're saying, is just kind of have some patience, even though coming off 12-2 and what he did against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, the expectations were huge?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Kid's still a freshman in my mind. He hasn't played that much. He's played 13 games, and he remember in the Big 12 game, the kid comes out and hits 17 in a row, but also remember he's throwing to a veteran group of receivers when he did that. Taekwon made 2 or 3 exceptional catches in that game, one of those which was a touchdown, which 5 out of 6 guys don't make that catch. So let's think about that. And Blake's got a good arm. I think he's gotten better as the season goes. Yeah, he missed Sims. I saw it on the play, but you know what? I was standing on the sideline. I wasn't running full speed on a sprint out having to find him. And it's a lot easier to stand over there knowing I'm not going to get hit and find the guy wide open. But that was a play he should have hit. There's no question. He hits it, game's over. The throw before the half, he just misjudged it, didn't lay it out far enough, and that one cost us 3, maybe 6. But Blake's a young guy. He's got a lot of ability. He's got a great arm. I think there's some mechanics that could be improved, but that type of thing you can work on and you can improve. The decision-making, all of that comes with experience, and that should just get better and better. Now, if he's doing that as a junior, that's a different story. But this is still a young kid, and I think Dugan is a great example to point at, and with all the struggles he's been through and the times that he's been benched, and to see what he's doing now, I think that's just a great story.
Yeah, Ricky, they used to have to pull Max out of the game because he was too keyed up.
Right, they did. And by keyed up, man, he was throwing it into crowds. He was running. He would drop back, and one guy would be coming at him from the corner. He was gone. He wouldn't sit there for anybody to wait and read and throw the football, go through his progressions. There was no progression. And look at him now. I just think well, there's no question without him, they're not 11-0. They're not in the Big 12 championship game. And I just speaks very well of him. And I think that he's earned a lot of respect from a group of Big 12 coaches and players this year.
Thank you so much for your knowledge, experience, and insight on what you saw, what you've seen. Thank you very much for your time, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Ricky Thompson, former Washington Redskins at the time wide receiver, and also former Baylor wide receiver, Baylor Radio.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533, Chuck Verno at 720 North 64th Street, Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Green Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
Welcome back to Game Day Live. Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Craig's out. He'll be back with us on the show in the afternoon on Monday as we have this special pregame show, Game Day Live, on a Friday morning. And Darby Brown will join us again in about maybe 45 minutes from DKR Memorial Stadium and Ricky Williams Earl Campbell Field. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. Now, here's some historical perspective. We do this every week. Texas leads and dominates most every series they've ever had, 78-29-4. In Austin, 48-10-2. The last time Baylor won in Austin was the year they won the Big 12 title under Art Brow's back-to-back years.
It's also the last time they beat TCU.
And also the last time they beat
TCU
at home. Yeah. The last time they played last year, Baylor was down, 21-10 or whatever it was at halftime. They were down at halftime, came back to win the game 31-24. Now, here's a note. Dave Aranda, 2022 Baylor, top 25 opponents this year. They have not beaten one. Lost to Brigham Young early. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and TCU all at home.
Well, and if the BYU one looks worse now because they're not in the top 25, but they were at the time. So
this year, when you thought, you had Texas and Oklahoma road games, but it seemed like not every year, but it seemed like they're always both on the road or home at the same time. This year, the games you had to win, those three teams were home games. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and TCU lost by 11 to Oklahoma State, lost by 31-3 to Kansas State, whatever that score was, and then TCU last week in that down to the wire. A huge win for the Frogs to remain unbeaten.
By the way, $2 super chat from Jason. Do you guys answer listener questions live? We absolutely do.
Absolutely.
So I told him, yes, please fire away with your question, and we will answer it live.
And we'll try to get to that when we do, and we appreciate you, in fact, for being a part of the show and watching us today. Yeah, 31-3, 29-28, 36-25, those losses to top 25 teams at home. Now on the road against 23rd-ranked Texas. Now, last year, we mentioned last year Baylor was 4-1 in one-score games. This year they're 2-3. Last year, beat Iowa State, top 25 game. Lost that game in Stillwater. Then won against Brigham Young at home, Oklahoma at home. Then won the rematch with Oklahoma State in Arlington, and then beat top 10 Ole Miss. 5-1 last year, 0-4 this year against top 25 teams.
3-0 against the top 10.
Yes,
last year,
yeah,
or 2-2. I guess 2-1. Well, I guess that Oklahoma State wasn't top 10 when they played them the first time, but the last three they were 3-0 against the top 10.
So there's just some things that flipped from last year to next, and a lot of times that does happen one year to the next. A couple of college notes. Kansas, Lance Leipold got a second extension. His new extension, which happened, I believe this might have been on Tuesday evening. Through 2029, 58-year-old now. Extension 6-5, Kansas State tomorrow night. He's now been extended twice in 1 year as they try to keep him from going anywhere else.
I don't think he's going anywhere else is one place.
Lincoln,
because I don't think they're worried about two places initially, Lincoln and Wisconsin. I think Jim Leonard's done enough, even though I know that it's not a banner year for the Badgers. I think Jim Leonard's done enough, and you've got a situation there with Jim Leonard that you have an alum, a guy who loves it there, a guy who never wants to leave Madison. I see you roll with that for a little while because I think he can really rally the troops in the same way that I don't think it would be totally crazy if Auburn gave that job to Cadillac Williams. He doesn't have, Jim Leonard's been doing it a little bit longer than Cadillac Williams, but if you listen to him talk about Auburn University,
no, it's in his blood.
It's in his blood,
in his soul.
And I mean, what's working for you, Auburn? Tell me what works.
Yeah.
So why not give it to the guy who you almost can't piss off, right? Well, you can't make him mad.
Mickey Joseph has been around, but he's a Nebraska guy. Yeah. I don't think he's going to get the job.
Yeah, so again, I wonder for Auburn now. Nebraska is. I'm pretty impressed with Trev Alberts though. He's kind of Mac Rosing this thing, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's not jumping early. He's going to see how this plays out. He may not get Leipold. He may not get Kleiman. I'm not just throwing out names that would have made sense. And who knows about the Matt Rule back and forth with that. Mitch Sherman had an updated story. I think it was yesterday, as Nebraska plays Iowa this week. How about this? Nebraska is a 10-point or 10.5-point underdog against a team in Iowa that averages 17 points a game. So what they're thinking is Nebraska won't score but a touchdown. And knowing them, they'll lose this game 23-6. All right, now, thanks to Rich, Scotty, BC, Jenkins put up the hook 'em horn sign. Robert Duncan, Cool Whip is plastic. Give me real whipped cream. Ooh, that hurt. Phil Venzer. Also, it's too early for me to be eating a turkey sandwich. Let's see here. How many conference games will Baylor have against Texas? They have 2 left at least. They have this year and then possibly next.
But we don't know that.
And
2 left, yeah.
No, they'll play. No,
they'll play at least one more time.
They're going to play Texas. Yeah. You would think that's a given. Yeah.
But again, with the 14-team league and how things shuffle out, there's going to be some teams that play one more time and that's it.
And you don't know it.
So we don't know yet.
I would think they know. I think that's kind of common. And Mac Rhodes told us, in fact, on Tuesday of last week that could come out. Maybe a slight delay just because of a couple of things, tweaks or whatever, sometime in early December. Wet blanket, Oklahoma. Scotty B, Josh, this is the current show. It's the pregame for Baylor in Texas. Was there a show the last 2 days, or did I miss it somehow? No, everyone had a chance to get away early Wednesday, and then yesterday being Thanksgiving Day. I probably should have made that a little bit more clear Tuesday as we wrapped up the show, but we like to get a time to just decompress too. We will have this show till 9:30 or 10:30. Paul will be back on for about an hour after the Texas-Baylor game, no matter the result. And then we also then will have the rest of the week end off after that, so to give you a little bit of clarity on that. Patrick, Texas is not going to be in the Big 12 championship game, even with a win. You're right, they can win, but Kansas State can knock them out if, in fact, they do win the game. Wonder what the talking heads would think if TCU won the national championship by some miracle. It might help neuter them.
I don't think it – look –
or they'll just say, this is a fluke, it can't happen.
I think
they wouldn't even recognize him if they did.
I think Georgia is clearly the most talented team, and then Ohio State right after them. But if you watch the way that those teams have played, what's different between, especially last week, that is the week you got to watch. What is the difference between TCU, Ohio State, Michigan, and Georgia right now based on last week? What's the difference?
Nothing.
So – again, I think when you take away the public relations of it all, you look at those four teams and two of them playing tomorrow in what should be an epic bout for all time, I hope. But one of them will be out of the mix, and then USC will be in, or somebody, depends on if they beat Notre Dame, but somebody else might be in. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think it's some miracle. I think it is. And if I was, I'll tell you, I want to make this comment before we have to go to the next segment. If I were ESPN, and my flagship yap yell at each other show was telling me not to watch something that's on my network, I would be furious.
Yeah.
Furious. Now, you can have your opinion about
they're the best at promoting themselves.
That game's not for me. But if you're like, hey, this game's on, it's going to be on ABC, for God's sakes. It's going to be on television. Don't watch it. Like the advertisers that have paid millions of dollars, I would be like, double birds to you, Baldy and Stephen A.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, one, you have some who are commenting about college football that have an agenda.
Yeah.
It's almost like politics. And then number two, you have somebody that really doesn't watch a lot of college football, but he's paid $10 million a year to say what he wants to say. The only way you can shut it up is to do something.
Go win.
OU, just one time.
Go
since
get
2000.
the dub.
Yep. And Baylor beating Ole Miss, or Texas, 4 years ago, whatever it was, beating Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. You got to do that more than that. You got to do it in the game, a big boy game. And Baylor to Ole Miss was a nice win, but you got to do it in the semifinals if, in fact, you get there. And Oklahoma had Georgia, remember, in trouble, and they just couldn't have enough to do that at the end. This is one comment from Aline UFO Pilot. Aranda's strength defense fell to 120th this season. They're 57th in total defense, which is lower than you want to see. So I'm not sure about what 20th is. How did it happen, and where can we expect next season forward? I think that Dave Aranda will have to make the same type of decisions or I'm not saying specific coaches, the same type of things and decisions he did from 20 to 21. He now is on the clock to do that. And on the clock doesn't mean like termination. On the clock to get that done between now and the 2023 season. When we come back, we're not done. We will hear from JJ Joe. Blake Blackmar today will help. What is it, Paul?
He's got cheesesteaks.
Philly cheesesteak sandwiches in his style. Our picks and more. This is 365 Sports, KWTX, and Game Day Live.
Ready for Santa? Call Montgomery Roofing today. We slay roofing. Ho, ho, ho!
We want people to know that we don't only care about the unborn, we care about those that have been born. And we believe that we bring hope, that we save lives, and that we transform families. My name is Lisa Chanot. I am the president of the Council for Life Central Texas Board. Our goal this year is to raise $150,000 so that we can continue to support agencies that share our mission.
What sets Hillcrest Dental Care apart is our vision of how we want to help other people be able to smile and be healthy and improve their quality of life.
When I came in, I had no teeth from here back because the bridge came off.
We were able to use dental implants, commonly referred to as a smile in a day, and literally take out the bad teeth and put in the new permanent teeth all in one day.
It looks natural to me. I don't feel guarded now. I'm enjoying my teeth.
Is your roof ready for Santa? Call Montgomery Roofing today. We slay roofing. Ho, ho, ho!
Watch KWTX Weekend Mornings on News 10.
We're not joined by Jeff Howell. Horns 24/7 and the Horn in Austin. You know, all of a sudden I'm looking through the names, the scores, I'm like, wait a minute. Texas still can get into the Big 12 championship game. I think that kind of got overlooked. And is that an accomplishment this year for them to still have that chance?
I think so, Smoak. You know, going into the year before we really knew anything about this team, kind of my goal was, my expectation, I should say, was, okay, 8-4, I think, would be a good year against the schedule, kind of get an idea of how competitive the Big 12 is going to be. And I said, look, if the Baylor game matters, then they probably did enough during the regular season to put themselves in a good position. And lo and behold, the Baylor game matters. I mean, now Texas would have to beat Baylor, and then you'd have to count on Kansas going on the road and beat Kansas State. So the odds aren't in their favor, but you know, I think at the end of the day, so if you look at what this team has accomplished this year, like if they beat Baylor, it's only going to be the fourth regular season with 8 or more wins since 2009. If they beat Baylor, it's only going to be the third time since then that they'll finish more than 2 games above 500 in a conference schedule. So Steve Sarkisian, there's been enough evidence to say that, yeah, this thing has improved from last year and that it's headed in the right direction. But I think not just to be able to sit back and watch Kansas and Kansas State and feeling like you've got a chance to play for a conference championship. I think a win over Baylor would validate a lot of the success that they've had. And let's face it, on a resume, 8-4 looks a lot better than 7-5.
Was there a time in that midsection of the season where in the last decade or so, most every year there's been like, they're off the rails? Was there a time when that almost happened, and why did it not happen?
You know, it felt like the Oklahoma State loss was one where it really could have come undone because you look at how they had played. I mean, they had lost a tough game in Lubbock. They came back, you know, they had a 3-game winning streak. They lose to Oklahoma State. And typically, you know, that's really where we've seen Texas teams kind of come unraveled. But I think for a couple of reasons. So I think one, they had a bye week right after that Oklahoma State loss. So they got a chance before they went on the road and played K-State to go back and fix some things. I think that's part of it. I think, too, you know, the leadership on this team has been really good. I mean, whether it's Roshan Johnson or Marvin Overshone, Keandre Coburn, a lot of veteran guys on the team that have played a lot of football. I think the leadership has been good. And I know this can sound overblown, but I do think these guys like being around each other and playing for each other. And I think one thing Sark did in the offseason that really helped this group bond together, they started having something called, you know, their Tell the Truth Wednesdays, where basically during the off season, they would just sit around on Wednesdays and guys would sit in the team meeting room and they wouldn't talk football. They would talk about their struggles or their life growing up or problems they're having. And I was talking to Marvin Overshone about it this week, and he said it really helps you understand why guys play as hard as they do or what motivates this guy, and it makes it easier to want to go fight for that guy on the field. So I think Sark, from that standpoint, Smokey, the camaraderie and the team chemistry standpoint, he's pushed the right buttons where he admits he did a really poor job of that last year. So I think all of that stuff, it came together really when they needed it to come together to come off that loss to Oklahoma State, hit the bye week, and then go to Manhattan and win a football game.
Has Jalen Ford, given what at times was a suspect defense in the midsection, maybe even soft, has he given them a toughness that allows everybody else to just go make plays because he's kind of got it?
I think that's part of it, Smokey. You know, talking to people around the team in the off season, I think internally, I think Pete Kwiatkowski is the defensive coordinator, Jeff Choate as the linebackers coach. I think a lot of what they thought the ceiling was for this defense was going to hinge on how good Jalen Ford was. I don't think he had a tackle in the opener against ULM, and they came out and had kind of a breakout game against Alabama, had 2 tackles for loss, had a sack in that game. I think he had 8 or 9 tackles, and really played well in that showcase game against Alabama early in the year. And he's been great. He's allowed them to kind of being a steady hand in the middle. He's allowed them to move DeMarvion Overshown around and use him kind of liberally how they wanted to last year, but they really couldn't afford to. But I think it's Jalen Ford, Smokey, in the middle of that interior Texas defensive line. Yeah, they've been so good this year. That group might have underachieved more than any other position group last year. That group has met expectations, and I think in a lot of ways exceeded expectations. You look at, you can look at the individual grades from Pro Football Focus. You can look at the raw production. I think it says a lot. One metric that I looked at this week in rushing success rate allowed. In other words, how often are you preventing the opponent from staying on schedule? Texas has the 11th best defense in the country in terms of rushing success allowed. They've been really hard to run the ball on, and I think that's that combination of Jalen Ford and how good guys like Keandre Coburn, Moro Ojimo, Tavondre Sweat have been in the middle of that defensive line. That defensive line has played this year like I think everybody, a lot of people, myself included, thought they were capable of playing last year.
Baylor's strength, their DNA is to run the football. And they have gone over 200 yards, and that's what they kind of do. That doesn't mean all the time, but they just haven't really had too much in the play-action passing game. Does what Texas now does better on defense compared to what Baylor, needs to do on offense, make that kind of where the game hinges?
Yeah, Smokey, that's a fascinating matchup to me between the Texas defensive line and the Baylor offensive line. Even the edges, Texas, they haven't been great on the edges, but, they've gotten a really good year out of Barron Sorrell. Ovia Gofu has been, he's kind of a steady hand out there, but they're much better on the edges than they were last year. Like I said, nobody other than Kansas State in the first drive of that game and TCU kind of late in the second half, nobody's really been able to just line up and run the football right at Texas this year. I think it's because Baylor, I think on both sides, Smokey, I think you've got to try to maybe copy or mimic kind of the TCU game plan against Texas, and I think just stick with the run because it's going to be hard, but that's the one thing. I'll give Garrett Riley credit to TCU. That's the one thing that they did. They really stuck with the run, and eventually Kendra Miller got a 75-yard touchdown run to pop. Now, that accounted for a big chunk of their yards, but, Miller and DeMercado, they started hitting late in the second half, started hitting some of those 4- and 5-yard gains that got themselves in a manageable third down situation. So if I'm Jeff Grimes, that's probably the approach I take. It's probably the best approach against Texas. If you can't get frustrated with the run, you've got to stick with it, because it's going to be tough sledding. But this Texas defense has shown on occasion they can give up an explosive play on the ground.
If, in fact, Texas doesn't win this game, does it put a little bit of a this to the season, or does a loss taint anything this year?
I think, some of those accomplishments I talked about, Smokey, I think a win would, I think, validate some of that and validate some of the forward momentum they've got. I think a loss would, if you want to look at it glass half empty, I think a loss would say, yeah, well, that's nice, but it doesn't really matter anything because, you finished 7-5. Sark has a chance to, as of right now, and granted, it's kind of easy when you come off a 5-7 season. Darryl Royal and Ed Price are the only other two coaches at Texas in the AP poll era that improved their win total from year 1 to year 2. And Sark has done that. Smokey, if they finish 9-4, that would be the best year-to-year turnaround Texas has had since '97, going from 4-7 under John Mackovic to 9-3 in Mac Brown's first year. So, a win over Baylor gives them a lot to play for during bowl season. And yeah, they're going to lose some valuable pieces, but I think if you're a Texas fan, I think those bowl practices are going to be really interesting for guys like a guy like a Maurice Blackwell, Terrence Brooks at corner, some of the younger wide, like a Brennan Thompson at wide receiver, Jonathan Brooks at running back. Because they've got some talent. I think when they've had to use their twos this year, some of those young guys in that, especially in that 2022 recruiting class, they've been really good. So you see some upside with Texas, but I think it's a lot easier to buy into what that upside could be and the direction Sark has this thing going if they win.
Yeah, the 98 team had a guy named Ricky Williams. This team has a guy named Bijan Robinson, who went off, of course, against Kansas. Jeff Howe, 24/7, The Horn in Austin on KWTX and 365 Sports.
Game Day Live on News 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
I see many people who've had their life turned upside down by an injury.
I crushed my hand and broke it in 8 places and had soft tissue damage. I got a spinal cord stimulator and my device stopped working and I was devastated. We had to find a new neurosurgeon through Advanced Pain Care. They took care of all of it for me. They got everything back together where I can function.
Let Advanced Pain Care help you take your life back. Call today for a same-day appointment. Advanced Pain Care, the pain stops here.
When it comes to accounting or financial services, choose a firm where it's about you. At Patillo, Brown & Hill, we empower our clients to thrive and grow with a strong professional partnership that gets to know you and your business. Our longevity is a product of our top-notch team of innovative thinkers, critical problem solvers, and dedicated partners who provide a clear and comprehensive plan for your financial achievement. Patillo, Brown & Hill, because it's more than numbers and data. It's about providing peace of mind.
Hey y'all, welcome to Blackmar Barbecue Tailgate Series brought to you by Game Guard Outdoors and Favorites Barbecue. We're into the best part of football season. That's that cold weather games in November, getting into December, big boy weather. Today, short on time, short on light, bad weather, so I figured we'd make a cheesesteak recipe, a cheesesteak sandwich. Not a Philly cheesesteak, this is more of a Texas cheesesteak, more of a contemporary cheesesteak. It is absolutely killer. Let me talk about this game plan. We've got a Wagyu cap steak. Now I don't know what it was the cap of. It's not the ribeye cap, so I don't know. After tasting it, cooking it, I think it was some sort of sirloin cap, but it's not a picanha by any means. Unknown. But this cool company, Marble 57, sent it to me, and I said, hey, Wagyu steak, I'll cook it, and it turned out fantastic. We're gonna pan sear that steak, flipping it quite often. I don't wanna cook outside, it's all bad weather, bad lighting. We're gonna pan sear the steak, get an elite crust, medium rare, take that off, slice it thin. In that steak juices, we're gonna cook onions, peppers, mushrooms, throw some Swiss cheese on it, toasted French bread, boom, killer sandwich, truffle aioli mayo. And it turned out fantastic, just like this. Medium rare. Juicy, cheesy, layers of flavor. And I made it just like this. All right, today we're working with some Marble 57 Wagyu rib cap. Marble 57 is a farm that recently sent me some stuff to try. So far, I've been really impressed. The marbling looks fantastic, beautiful looking piece of meat. It came to me frozen. I had it in the freezer for a little bit. We defrosted it, ready to go. Favorite steak and see, one of my personal favorites. Pretty simple seasoning, pack some flavor. I have won some money using this in competitions. We're gonna go ahead and go on with a medium coat. We're just gonna let this sit out at room temperature for about 20 minutes while we do our prep work. Ooh, that's a good looking knife. Can't have a cheesesteak without onions. Into the bowl. Now we've got some beautiful red peppers from the garden. peppers. And we got some shiitake mushrooms. Game plan for these is just to give them a quick dice. They're gonna soak up so much flavor. Beef and mushrooms go together like 4th and 1 and a quarterback sneak all day. Shrooms in. I've never been to Philly, but I know most cheesesteaks I've had have had a good mayo-based sauce. I picked up this Truff hot sauce at the grocery store. Been hearing a lot of good things about it. My buddy Spencer Drango put me on. It is some tasty stuff, so I'm just gonna go in with a couple tablespoons of that with our mayo. Sprinkle of steak and sea. Beautifully roasted garlic. Garlic truffle hot sauce mayo. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, that's nice. Now I wish I could get a nice hoagie roll to try this on, but I'm working with half a loaf of French bread. Should crisp up nice, be nice and soft and chewy. All right, team, we back with the induction burner. Got the cast iron on. We're gonna first toast our bread. We're gonna go into our pan with some Wagyu beef tallow. Key to cooking a steak in a pan like this is you want to keep it moving actively. Flip it just about every minute. We got Wagyu beef cooking in Wagyu beef tallow with some favorite steak and sea. The smell's fantastic. We're just going to keep flipping this just about every minute or so to give even cooking. Flip. Stand it on its head a little bit. Flippity floppity. So what I'm finding is this steak is going to be a little challenging. It's real thin over here, but on this side it's really plumped up. So I don't really want to overcook this. So I'm going to try to, ooh, look at that crust though. I'm going to try to stand this up and get some good cooking action on this thick end. Pan searing a steak is such like, you just got to feel it out, you know, because every cut is different. Play with it, move it around. And as always, double check that gut feeling with your meat thermometer. We're up in the 110 range. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little butter in here. Let that get nice and happy. I want y'all to notice that we're not blasting this heat over super high heat. That's a good way to burn your seasoning, blacken your pan too much, burn your butter, burn your Wagyu tallow. Like, I'm all for high heat searing, especially if you've done a reverse sear. But when you're pan searing in the house, medium heat, flip it a whole bunch of times, you'll still get an elite crust without putting anything in danger. Give the pan a little tilt. Spoon that goodness over the top. Give it a flip, rinse and repeat. This steak is really plumped up. The crust is looking beautiful. Sitting at about 120 internal. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off because I'm gonna give this a much longer rest than I normally would while we cook down those veggies. Into this hot, tallowy, good stuff goes our veg. Hit it with a little steak and seed, build those layers of flavor. While these veggies are going, we do have some fond built up. I'm gonna go ahead and deglaze with a little Worcestershire sauce. Hit it with that W. I guarantee you that's not the only W we're getting tonight, boys. Swiss cheese on our veggies. I wanna try to get it melted so I don't have to stick it in the oven and I end up overcooking the steak. See how this steak came out? The grains are running this way. So I'm gonna turn and we're gonna slice like this on the bias. Oh, baby. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That looks, I'm doing the video. I almost feel bad making a sandwich out of it. Oh, the juice. Let's build this bad boy. Got our toasted bread. generous smear of our garlic truffle aioli. I'm going to layer on these thin slices, shingle them. I'm going to take some of these bad boys and cut them in half because they're a little bigger. Mushrooms, Swiss, peppers, onions. A little smear on the top bun. Oh, good Lord. You can really smell the truffle in that hot sauce right now, that roasted garlic smell. Beefy. I'm ready to get into this bad boy. This is what I call a cheesesteak. Hot damn. This is a beautiful medley of flavors, a symphony, if you will. You've got the beefiness of the steak coming through front and center. This isn't no chopped, super thin sliced select ribeye that you might get on Philly cheesesteak. This was a whole, medium rare, juicy, beautiful Wagyu steak that we sliced, put on this beautifully toasted French bread. The garlic and truffle is there, but it's not overpowering. Onions, peppers, mushrooms, I don't know what else to say. This is a total winner. The only thing I would potentially change is I would slice the steak a little thinner, and since this is somewhat of an unidentified steak, a cap steak, I don't really know what that means, other than picanha being a sirloin cap, but it's not picanha. If you were gonna recreate this, I would do this with a New York strip, ribeye, whatever steak you want, just make sure you slice it a little thinner. I got a little generous on the slicing. The steak is bite through, but doesn't quite come, sometimes you'll pull it out of the sandwich. It's a beautiful mess after you get a couple bites there. That's so good. Thanks for watching Blackmore Barbecue Tailgate Series. It's been a lot of fun, y'all. The brisket video's coming soon, I promise.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Richard Carr and his team are standing by the Bears in all sports this coming season, but Richard Carr's passion for football started many years ago when he was a trainer for the football team. In addition to his alma mater, Richard Carr also loves selling quality cars and trucks to his Central Texas neighbors. Whether you want the unbeatable GMC Sierra truck loaded with luxury and strong and tough for the workday, or the performance and ride of a Cadillac or Buick SUV, Richard Carr has an amazing lineup of vehicles for you. Stop by for a test drive, contact them online, or call and say Sikkim and you're immediately a VIP at Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Find them at Highway 6 at the Imperial exit or at richardcarr.com.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Furno, Brad Wilson and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
And here we go. Continue with Game Day Live. We'll hear from Darby Brown from Austin at DK Royal Memorial Stadium. Ricky Williams and Earl Campbell Field here momentarily. Here are the picks for this week. Levi put these up on a graphic. Here are the picks. Paul, there's your hands, by the way. The picks for the week, all three of us. Craig, by the way, slightly ahead. Is the graphic up with the picks? We can't do the picks? Okay.
Just got to fix that camera angle real quick.
There we go.
Nope.
Well, Craig, yeah, just lower the camera if you can. Paul, you're getting a nice. Let's do the. Okay, there you go. That's a great picture.
That's great.
Texas across the board. There you go.
All right.
There we go. Texas across the board. Baylor will have to force turnovers. Can they emotionally get back up off the canvas? 1 week it was because they were hammered at home, and the other one because of the devastating loss in the last second to TCU.
Yeah, I don't think that this game is going to be any kind of like 8.5 points just felt weird to me personally. I know a lot of people on the website picked it differently. I mean, even picking Texas, but I just don't know where this team is emotionally. I just don't.
And we'll find out. You can find out pretty early. Now, there's fake emotion, there's raw emotion, and then there's sustainability emotion. We'll see what happens. Also, Ohio State home. If this game was in Ann Arbor, I would pick Michigan. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing doesn't come down to like a last-minute drive. But Ohio State at home, I'll take the Buckeyes to continue to roll.
Yeah, I'm picking the Buckeyes. Also, Blake Corum, questionable at best. So
Craig, by the way, not here today, but his picks are in the middle. Paul's to the left, mine's on the right. USC and Notre Dame, I think this will be very interesting. But USC last week, again, they're on a nice run. Caleb Williams right now, maybe the leading Heisman Trophy contender, and so I have the Trojans in a game that dates me back to when Anthony Davis was incredible back in the early 70s and O.J. Simpson in the 60s.
I think Notre Dame's going to give them every little bit that they want, but I think USC's just got more talent, especially on offense, and Caleb Williams.
Cincinnati's going for their 33rd consecutive win at Nippert Stadium, thanks to Steve Shook for that note. They have a quarterback who's a 4-star player, Mr. Ohio, playing because Brian is out. You guys have the green wave, and I take Cincinnati despite the quarterback issue.
I like Willie Fritz's toughness with this team. I think this is, again, but Willie Fritz versus Luke Fickell, I mean, this is a brick fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
And Craig has Tulane. I take Cincinnati. Oklahoma, and this is a dangerous one in Lubbock. Texas Tech bowl eligible. This is a game that almost became a battle to see who become a bowl eligible, but both winning last week. Sooners across the board. Texas Tech fans, I know you're mad. Louisville, and this game against Kentucky. I take Kentucky. I just feel like, again, they're a little bit better. Louisville's been on a nice run with Coach trying to save his job. In fact, probably has. And you guys both have the Cardinals.
Got 7 wins. They're 7-4 right now. You're going to fire the guy at 7 wins?
Nope.
And he hasn't had Malik Cunningham up and down for most of the year. So, yeah, I've got sat in this one. Much to the dismay of some Louisville fans.
Also, Washington and Washington State. I think this is a toss-up game.
The Apple Cup.
Yep, I'll take Washington. Craig takes the Cougars, and Paul took Washington, too.
Michael Penix versus Cam Ward. Good quarterback battle, good transfer quarterback battle, but I'm leaning Penix right
Last thing here, games today besides Baylor, Texas at 11 o'clock, Tulane, Cincinnati, 2:30, NC State, North Carolina, Nebraska, Iowa at 3. Iowa can clinch the Big 12 championship game with a win. UCLA at Cal at 3:30, and Florida State at 6:30. Back with more Game Day Live, 365 Sports and KWTX.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
Come experience modern luxury living at Portico at Friars Creek in Temple. Enjoy our pet-friendly Tuscan and loft-style Texas-sized floor plans with desirable features like stainless steel appliances, vaulted ceilings, designer colors, expansive walk-in closets, washer and dryer connections, high-speed internet access, and so much more. You'll love our community amenities like a zero entry and our resort-style pool with an inviting outdoor cabana. Find your next home now at PorticoApartmentsTemple.com. Portico at Friars Creek in Temple, a Case & Associates property. Find Case, find home.
At Dr. Smiley, you're always our top priority. Dr. Lee, Dr. Lim, and the friendly staff are committed to delivering exceptional and professional care in general, family, cosmetic, and emergency dental services. Get $24.99 implant, abutment, crown, 3D CT scan, and consultation. Dr. Smiley accepts Medicaid and most dental insurance. Call Dr. Smiley today at 254-732-2606 and book your appointment today.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
KWTX News 10 Weekend Evenings.
All right, remember now the top four in the college football playoffs, the standings. There are 2 weeks left to go with that. And right now, Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. They play each other tomorrow. And then at number 4, TCU, and they're home against Iowa State. And then, no matter what, they'll be again in the Big 12 championship game. And still at 4, if they take care of their business, at least 4 take care of their business, could move up to 3 based on Ohio State and Michigan, and should if they do win against Iowa State. Now, one quick note. We're going to go to Darby Brown in a moment. One quick note about the Pac-12. It's a mess. Here is the graphic that our good friend Tony Altimore put up. I don't expect you to digest all that because I can't either. But this is the scenario. These are the scenarios for the game to be whatever it is, and this is Oregon's perspective, the easiest path to the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, they have the easiest path. Basically, if they win, they're in. But if they don't, if Oregon State wins, then they need Wazoo to win the Apple Cup, and then they're in. Or if Washington wins, then they would need UCLA to beat Cal, because if not, then Washington goes. Or if UCLA beats Cal, Colorado somehow beats Utah, Washington goes. Or Utah can come out and all that stuff if Utah wins, which they should over Colorado. In fact, I think in this game, Utah should have to play the last 7 minutes of the third quarter with their eyes closed.
I am so appreciative of Tony sending that graphic. But I now need to take a couple of Advil because there's so many. But the bottom line, there's a couple easy ways for it to happen as well. Billy Bob, Oregon doesn't deserve if they lose it. If they don't deserve to play if they lose tomorrow in their game with Oregon State, who can give them some hell now. You have Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, Washington State, Kansas, Kansas State, Alabama, Auburn. There's some great rivalry games. Of course, long time rivalry games.
Oregon State's good. Oregon State's good. Washington State's good. The only bad matchup in that, there's two. Well, UCLA and Cal's not a great one, and Utah and Colorado's not great, but UCLA might be reeling a little bit after that tough loss last week. You don't want to, if you're USC to beat you twice, essentially. But all those, the Apple Cup's a great game in the, I don't know what they call the Oregon and Oregon State game, but
Garrett, do we have Darby? All right, we're now joined by Darby Brown at DK Royal Memorial Stadium, Ricky Williams and Earl Campbell Field in Austin, Baylor and Texas just after 11 o'clock. And Darby, the situation atmosphere right now.
The atmosphere, yeah. So it's still a little while till kickoff. So, the people are outside the stadium having fun, but they're slowly making their way inside. And it feels good. The temperature dropped a little bit in the time that we went up to the press box after our first hit in the show. And it's got a little cooler. People are starting to feel in. It feels like a Black Friday football game out here.
Darby, the key to this game for Baylor on offense is probably going to be how much they can win in the passing game, because Texas's defense is going to sell out to stop the run. They have not had a completely healthy group of wide receivers. How does that group look warming up? Monterey Baldwin's been playing through some injuries. Gavin Holmes, right? Smokey is out. So
yeah, they just haven't had the consistency among the receivers, and even the ones who have been productive have also been in and out of the lineup as well.
Yeah. So what does it look like there for the wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, the group just came out, so we're kind of starting to see them warm up here. I think you can see the Blake Staples right behind me, so they're just getting going out here. But everyone that you would expect to be out here is making their way out here so far. But yeah, I mean, no secret about the injuries and people that they've had. Drake Dabney just came over by on his scooter, which is, always a bummer to see. But Kelsey Johnson's out there warming up, so maybe he'll have another big game. And yeah, I mean, they're all looking like the people that should be out here are definitely warming up and getting ready to go.
Darby, what are your thoughts then today? Texas starts fast most of the time. Baylor, of course, has done that as well, but it's been erratic. Your thoughts about what we see today?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Baylor put together a complete game, which I think they did for most of the game against TCU, and I'd like to see that again today. I think the good balance is what I would like to see from their offense. A little bit of passing, a little bit of running, and then on the other side, on defense, they got to stop the run. I think everyone knows Bijan Robinson is, the most consistent guy the Longhorns have, so I think it kind of starts and ends with him. They've handled him in the past, so maybe they'll have good luck with that again today. But I think he had a monster game last week, so he definitely would be. And he's a guy that, loves playing here at home, all those other things. So if they could slow him down, I think that's a big key.
Darby, do you think Baylor can win this game if they make Quinn Ewers throw it 50 times like he did against Oklahoma State?
I think that's what you have to do. I think you got to make him throw it. And I mean, he's that's not a knock on him, but I think Coach Aranda said it best that when it gets gray and when it gets dirty, I think that's the word he used. So, he's not seeing what he wants to see. He struggles. So they got to make it dirty and gray for him. And then I think they'll be in good luck.
Boy, you'd like to see a more consistent pass rush. Again, that means you have to also contain Bijan, and should be fun. Darby, you guys have been great, you and Chris, throughout the year, and hopefully there's a bowl game. There is one. We just don't know exactly when and where at some point down the line. This is our first year to do what we do, and we've been doing it with KWTX and the CW channel, and with your group. You've been fantastic. It's been great to have you live each weekend when we've done the show.
Thank you, guys. It's been a lot of fun. So I already had a close encounter with Devo today. Hopefully that's the only one I have for the day. And hopefully it's a good game out here.
All right. Be good. There you go.
He'll get you. I mean, those horns. I mean, they'll get you.
Bevo's, Ashley Hodge loves, what do you call it? Wingspan. Imagine Bevo's horn span.
That's the first time I went to the Texas OU game. Adam Winkler is my friend of mine. He asked me to come help him work that game years ago. And after the game, everybody wants, it's lined up around the Cotton Bowl field, or different people from about 15 different television stations shooting at Bevo as he just sits there at different angles. And I genuinely did feel bad for that, because you can tell he's like, I just want to get back in the thing and go back to Austin, but all these news guys are getting me in their background. And if they had lost the game, here's what I felt bad for Bevo. Had they lost the game, they'd have just taken him home. But they won that game. It was the one where Sam Bradford got hurt in the game for Oklahoma, and then poor Bevo had to just sit out there and look pretty for the camera.
Yep, and Bevo just sits there and chills. In that game against Georgia, remember, he went after the Bulldog. That was really interesting. All right, when we come back, our final thoughts and predictions. We gave you who we think is going to win and a little bit more about how. Look at the Big 12 schedule, and we are 365 Sports, KWTX, and Game Day Live.
Game Day Live on News 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
We all are experiencing how the current crisis is affecting our communication. Conducting virtual meetings or classes from the workplace or your home while maintaining security, efficiency, and effective communication throughout your organization is the new normal. Asbel Electronics can set up your business, school, or house of worship with hardware kits to enhance your virtual meeting experience and provide secure market-leading Cisco WebEx meeting or Teams for your face-to-face communication. Call Asbel Electronics at 254-824-0237.
Place Interiors. From designer drapes to custom total installation, quality area rugs to a wide selection of floor covering, Home Place Interiors has you covered. With over 40 years of experience, you can trust John Proctor and his knowledgeable staff to help you with your next home project. Home Place Interiors, where we do business the old-fashioned way, on a handshake.
I don't know what any of this stuff is.
Is the Jeep not starting?
Token, can you please come help?
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Call Tow King 24 hours a day for all your emergency roadside needs.
We are back, Game Day Live, to give us some, and you give us some of the final perspective. A lot of you discussing Baylor and Texas. I think the majority of everyone has thought Texas would win, although there are some Baylor fans and even non-Baylor fans giving us their feedback. Billy Bob wanted to know the Big 12 standings. TCU is in. They're going to play next week in Arlington. 8-0 in the conference, a 2-game lead on Kansas State. If K-State on Saturday beats Kansas, they're in the championship game. Right now, Texas, if they beat Baylor, and then Kansas upsets K-State, Texas, by way of head-to-head with Kansas State, would then play TCU in the championship game. Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Tech all 4-4. OU, Kansas 3-5. All of those teams are bowl eligible. West Virginia, Iowa State 2-6 and 1-7.
And it really kind of comes down to some interesting stuff here. So there's going to be 3 teams at 6-6, right? At the end of the day, or there could be.
Well,
overall,
Tech and Oklahoma, one will be 7-5, one 6-6.
Yeah.
Kansas, if they lose to Kansas State, 6-6.
Yeah.
Baylor loses 6-6, but they could be 7-5.
There could be Baylor. Whatever happens, if Kansas and Oklahoma both win, if Baylor wins, when you come down to like the bowl selection, Jack McKenzie and I worked this out yesterday, because by virtue of beating Kansas, Tech, and Oklahoma, if they have the same record or better, obviously, but if they all finish with the same record, Baylor might get a better bowl slot than them because they hold those tiebreakers when it comes down to Big 12 number 5 versus Big 12 number 6, SEC number 7, whatever they do, how they pick the bowl slot. So it's going to be interesting. I'm sure the bowls are sitting around waiting what's going to happen in the Big 12 because they've got this clump of, they could have Kansas, they could have Oklahoma, they could have Oklahoma State, they could have, it's all a mess right now.
Baylor can be as high as 3rd if they win today because they would be 5-4 and have the tiebreaker against Texas, but you would know that Texas in the eyeballs, and that's part of the deal on what bowl game. Oklahoma State actually can be 5-4. So you could end up with a clump there. But you're right. Baylor could fall down to 4-5, and who knows, drop all the way to 8 based on priority, although being the defending Big 12 champions and a team that's been really good 10 of the 12 years since 2010 will help them. I ask everybody in the chat room to give us your predictions. Billy Bob says Baylor 28, Texas 24. I know Paxton, who's been out there. I think Paxton and also C. Jenkins both have picked up their UT fans, and both have taken Texas. And Texas, again, is more than a touchdown favorite to win this game. The text line today, well, let's see here, from Michael Campbell. Oh, he just wished us happy Thanksgiving. He's a big Notre Dame fan. And Michael Campbell, Notre Dame and USC is tomorrow.
Big recruit. They locked up this last week, too. Notre Dame did. So Michael is always sending us those updates as well. So certainly appreciate Michael for that. And, yeah, that game, I'm looking forward to that one. Of course, after this game, then I'm totally focused on a game in the Sunshine State, and then I can focus on the rest of the world.
UCF is playing who?
I think they actually play USF this week, but I think that's their big rivalry game. Those two schools, let me tell you, they
don't like each other.
They do not like each other
in any way, shape, or form.
I have never, in the Big 12 covering it all this time, there's been very little president trash talk, and I get that Ken Starr was the president here, and that brought along some political stuff that came with him, but they talk trash about each other's school presidents.
Yeah.
It's
and UCF has won a bunch in a row against them. Remember, that USF at one point, were they ranked number 2 in the country back in the day? It seems like it's been a long, long time ago. By the way, Ben Bryant, the starting quarterback at Cincinnati, I mentioned that. Somebody asked me to update that. He's out with a foot injury. And so Evan Prater, who Steve told me about on the text, is a former Mr. Ohio. He'll make his first ever career start for the Bearcats in their game today at 11 o'clock Central against ranked 24 against 19th ranked Tulane.
I think that's who the fans kind of wanted to play all year.
Really?
Look, Cincinnati's had a really good year. They've only lost 2 games, right? So they've had a really good year. Not what they had last year, but they also had the best quarterback they've ever had in Desmond Ridder at Cincinnati. So sometimes they're going to have, now that they're in the Big 12 especially, I think Cincinnati is going to just get guys like Desmond Ridder again.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the first big one they had. I do think, though, that they wanted the freshman, but that's what everybody wants, right? When Austin Novosad gets to Baylor in the spring,
they'll want him.
People they're going to want him to cut
they
the line.
They wanted Shapen over Bohannon.
They want Drones over Shapen.
Zeno over Brewer.
Yeah, that's just how it is. You want look, Quinn Ewers, everybody in Austin seems to really like him, but Arch Manning's coming soon, and then he's not the flavor of the month anymore.
There have been some who thought that Hudson Card should have been playing in some ways, or coming in off the bench when Ewers struggled at Oklahoma State and or in the game against TCU. Jerry Chatham, I'll take 1974 repeat, 34-24 Sikkim. Roger, Baylor 31-28. Roger's a huge West Coast fan. Roger Dodger, I had Sark getting fired at 3-7 with a loss to TCU this year. I was wrong. No, they're 7-4 and have a chance to get the 9-4 as we talked about with Jeff Howe. The Big 12 schedule, other than Baylor, Texas today: West Virginia, Oklahoma State in Stillwater, 11 o'clock tomorrow. Iowa State at TCU, 3 o'clock. And then Oklahoma at Tech in a night game. Boy, Lubbock's been able to get a lot of night games this year, and that's a really hard place to play anyway. And it's 6:30 tomorrow in Kansas. Kansas State is at 7 o'clock.
Why are they getting more than Baton Rouge? That's a conspiracy to dive into.
That does not happen. It shouldn't happen.
I think part of it, I think the SEC knows when they call Greg Sankey and say, all right, which one of us this year gets the please don't put us in a night game trump card?
Yeah, no.
But they can throw out you had it.
Is LSU, where would LSU be among, let's say, the top 3 or 4 places at night? Where would they
number
be?
One.
Would they be number 1?
It has to be.
There's got to be someone else, though, that we just don't maybe pay much attention to in a night game. But that, it all depends on how teams are playing, but LSU is a place.
It's number 1.
Yeah, you could go party and not even know the game is going on outside on Saturday night.
I don't know. And I've been to, there's some great venues at night. I'll tell you, it's not anymore, but it was great when it was back in the day. The Orange Bowl at night, holy cow.
Back when Miami was Miami.
Oh, man.
Autzen Stadium. Billy Bob said Autzen Stadium. By the way, Billy Bob, also, the way Oklahoma State's been playing, you almost want to take West Virginia.
Yeah, the other Death Valley, Clemson, pretty darn good at night. That's a good
I wonder if
place.
there's a specific team in the Big Ten at night. You don't think of that.
They always play the big game. The biggest game of their century right now is at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Well, so was Texas OU is most of the time, too.
Did you give me a whiteout environment at Happy Valley at night?
Penn State.
That's different.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. David, the 2 Death Valleys, Clemson and LSU, is what you're talking about there. So we started this idea, Josh Young, back in the late spring, early summer. We sat down and said, hey, let's do something together. We still have another game. Baylor has a bowl game. We just don't know when, where, and who they play. But we appreciate Josh Young and all the great folks at KWTX. Andrew Hamilton, Barry Bass, Darby Brown, Chris Williams, plus Craig, Garrett, Levi Emery, Jacob, Garrett, and, of course, Paul Catalina. And I'm David Smoak. Garrett, is that it? We got a little bit longer? Okay, a little bit longer. All right, let's give you a score. Give your score today.
I'm going to take Texas 29, Baylor 24.
I say Texas 34 to some. I don't remember what I put in the 34-23 or 34-16. Baylor better match the intensity of that crowd. They're feeling pretty good. They actually have avoided that long death nail that they at times have when they lose a game like they did against Oklahoma State or like they did against Texas Tech. I'm talking about UT, or like they did against TCU. They do seem to have a little bit more grit to them. I don't know if Baylor's going to be able to run the ball because UT's been pretty good about that. Can Chapin somehow dial one up, because they're going to need him at his best today, and the defense has to force turnovers. For Garrett Ross and Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Game Day Live, KWTX and 365 Sports. Enjoy your day.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
I'm Carol Weaver with Waco Mattress Center. Central Texas has grown a lot, and so has the Weaver family. We've been selling the best mattresses at the best price right here on Valley Mills Drive for over 20 years. With brands like Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Beauty Rest, we've sold over 400,000 mattresses. Our family would like to thank you for choosing Waco Mattress Center. I'm Carol Weaver, your local mattress expert. Thank you for your business.